In this video, you will learn how to divide numbers that have a one-digit quotient. Now in the previous lesson, we learned how to divide numbers that divide evenly. So things like maybe 48 divided by 8. We know that would equal 6. Or maybe we wrote it as a fraction, where we have 12 divided by 6 written in this way, and that would equal 2. So each of those examples that we worked with in the previous lesson, they all worked out evenly, meaning there's no leftover numbers. In today's lesson, we're going to work with numbers that have what we call a remainder, or a number left over. That's going to be something like 49 divided by 8, or maybe 12 divided by 7. So things like that. Alright, so when you're doing this, there's a process with which we can solve these different problems. And to understand that process, let's first explain this with an example. All right, so let's say we had 16 of whatever, $16 or maybe 16 blocks. And let's say we want to divide into 3 equal groups. So we can write that as a division problem where we have 16 divided by 3. So if we divide into 3 equal groups, we can put 5 into each of those groups. But when you do that, with 5 in each group, 5 in 3 groups, that's going to be a total of 15, but we had 16 total. So that means we have 1 left over. So each group can have 5, but there's 1 left over at the end. So the way we can express this is our answer could be 5 with a remainder of 1. Remainder, by the way, just means the number or something that's left over. The number that's remaining, that's still there at the end. So the remainder, or the number left over, is going to be this 1 right there. So we can maybe visualize it with this problem here, but how would you have to solve that? How would you calculate? Well, what we can do is we can take this division problem of 16 divided by 3 and express it in this way, where we have 16 on the inside, then we have this little half a box, and then we have a 3 on the outside. So this is also division, so we have 16 divided by 3. And what we do is we basically divide 16 by 3, or in other words, we see how many times does 3 go into 16 without going over. So if you think through 16 divided by 3, we can have 5, right? 3 goes into 16 5 times without going over. If you chose 6, 3 does not go into 16 6 times, because 6 3s would be 18. That's too big. So 3 goes into 16 5 times. So the 5 can go up here. And then to figure out the remainder, we can take 5 times 3 to get 15. So now we have 16 and then 15. And then we subtract 16 minus 15, and that gives you 1. So this 1 right here is your remainder. So now we can put that together as 5 with a remainder of 1. And this R means remainder. So 5 with a remainder of 1. So that is the steps we would use to find the answer to this previous problem. So instead of drawing out the shapes or whatever, we can calculate it in this manner. And then once we have our answer, we can double check our work to see if we got it correct. And the way we do that is we take this 5, multiply it by the 3, and then we add the remainder of 1. So 5 times 3 plus 1 would give you 15 plus 1, which equals 16. So because 16 matches up with this number in here, which was also 16, because that is the same number, that means we do have the correct solution. So the answer is 5, the remainder of 1. So if you're someone who likes to have steps to follow, here is the steps we can use to calculate or figure out the answer to this division problem. The steps would be as follows. We divide, so 16 divided by 3, or in other words, think through how many times does 3 go into 16. So that would be your step 1, divide. Step 2, once we have the number up here, the 5 in this case, we would multiply 5 times 3 to get the 15. So we divided, and we multiplied, and then from here we can subtract 16 minus 15 to get the 1. So your third step is subtract, and then the answer here, the number we have at the bottom, that is the remainder, and step 4 is we can write the remainder with the number we already had. So you divide, multiply, subtract, and then write the remainder. So that's the process, and now from here we're just going to walk you through a couple examples. So with these examples, feel free to try any of these on your own, see if you can get to the answer. You can pause the video at any time as well, that way you're not hearing my explanation while you're working. So whatever you want to do, you can do that at this time. But here we have 4 different examples. All right, so here we have 60 divided by 7. So when you do this, all right, we can set it up in this manner, where we have 60 on the inside, your half a box right here, and then 7 on the outside. So step 1, remember, is to divide. So we divide 60 by 7, meaning how many times does 7 go into 60 without going over? And that's going to be 8, right? Because 7 goes into 60 8 times. 9 is too big because if we do 9 times 7, that's 63. So 7 does not go into 60 9 times. 9 is too big. So you put an 8 here, and then we can take the 8, multiply it by the 7 to get 56. So your step 2 was to multiply 8 times 7. Step 3 is subtract. So we subtract 60 minus 56, and that gives you 4. And then step 4 is we can write the remainder. So this 4 that we have here, that is the remainder. So we can write this now as 8 with a remainder of 4. So 8 remainder of 4, that is your solution. And if we wanted to double check our work, what we can do is we take the 8 times the 7, so 7 times 8, and then we add the remainder of 4. So 7 times 8 plus 4, that would be 56 plus 4, which would be 60. So because 60 here matches with 60 over here, that means we do have the correct solution. Let's try another example. Here we have 34 divided by 5. So when you do this, we can set it up in this manner, where we write 34, put a little half a box right here, and then 5 on the outside. So our step 1 is we divide. So we see how many times does 5 go into 34 without going over. So if you think through, 6 is what we want, because 5 goes into 34 6 times. If we chose 7, 7 is too big, right? Because 7 times 5 is 35, that's too big. So your number we want is 6. Step 2 is we can then multiply. We do 6 times the 5, and that gives you 30. So put the 30 right here, and then step 3 is we can subtract. We take 34 minus 30, and that gives you 4. So we get 4, and step 4 is we can write the remainder. So 4 is the remainder, so we can write this as 6 with a remainder of 4. And the letter R means remainder. So 6 remainder 4. So that is your answer, and we can double check to make sure we got it correct. And the way we do that is we take 5 times 6 plus the 4. So multiply 5 times 6 and then add the remainder. So 5 times 6 plus 4 would be 30 plus 4, which would give you 34. So because 34 matches with the number inside of here, that means we have the correct solution. Let's try 2 more examples. Next we have 50 divided by 7. So we can write it like this to get set up. So put 50 on the inside, 7 on the outside. And then step 1 is we divide. So divide 50 by 7, meaning we see how many times does 7 go into 50 without going over. So the answer is going to be 7, because 7 goes into 50 7 times without going over. So what we can do is we put a 7 here, and then step 2 is we can multiply. So you multiply 7 times 7, that gives you 49, and you write it right here. Step 3 is we can subtract. So we do 50 minus 49, and that gives you 1. Step 4 is write the remainder. So 1 is the remainder, so we can write this as 7 with the remainder of 1. So your solution is 7, remainder 1. And then from here we can double check our work if we wanted. We can do 7 times 7 right here, and then we can add the 1 right here. So 7 times 7 plus 1 would be 49 plus 1, which equals 50. So because 50 is equal to 50 here, that means we do have the correct solution. Let's try one more example. Here we have 27 divided by 6. So when you get set up, we can write it like this: 27 on the inside, 6 on the outside. And then we do step 1, which is divide. So we see how many times does 6 go into 27 without going over. And that's going to be 4. It goes into 27 4 times. So then we can multiply for step 2. So 4 times 6 gives you 24. And then we write it right here. And then step 3 is we can subtract. So we do 27 minus 4. That gives you 3. Sorry. So 3 goes down here. And then step 4 is we can write the remainder. So 3 is the remainder. So we can write this as 4 with a remainder of 3. So your solution is 4, remainder 3. So that's your solution, and we can double check our work by doing 6 times 4 plus the remainder. So 6 times 4 plus 3 would be 24 plus 3, which is 27. And because 27 matches with 27 right here, that means we do have the correct solution. So 4, remainder 3 is the solution. And that concludes our lesson for today. We will see you next time.